Welcome aboard, everybody. Dr. Peter Glidden here, your steadfast advocate for health, welcoming you to another live edition of Fire Your MD Now. Today is the 3rd day of July 2013, July 3rd, 2013. Welcome aboard, everybody. Now, as I promised yesterday, we had a caller that was holding on just forever, and that's a long time. I told him I'd take him right off the top when we started today, and guess what? I have such a dedicated fan base that he called back. So we're going to go right to the phones right now, so Harry doesn't have to wait any longer. Hey, Harry, thanks for the call back. You are live.
Thank you again, Dr. Glidden, and we can just make this short and sweet. I appreciate it. I guess the bottom line, I took a look at some of the symptoms of overdose of hydrocortisone, and some of it was fatigue slightly, but I think at this point they say my adrenals are not functioning hardly at all. The doctor said you need the 40 milligrams to keep you going right now. So,
well, all right. So that's good to know. I mean, because we need to know what we're dealing with here. And I'm telling you the truth, Harry, that it's better safe than sorry in this regard, right? And so now that we've ruled out a hydrocortisone problem, too much, which was caused by an augmentation of the action of the drug because you were taking the nutritional supplements, then there's only a few alternatives left. There's only so many things that can be causing the problem that you have here. So the thing to understand about the adrenal, the functioning of the adrenal glands is that the MDs have kind of a stilted, through a glass darkly understanding of how the whole thing works. And from their point of view, it's, once the adrenal glands are gone, the adrenal glands are gone. But curious, inquiring minds want to know, well, what the heck makes the adrenal glands go south in the first place, right? Well, the problem with the adrenal glands going south in the first place rarely is that there's a problem specifically with the adrenal gland. The problem most of the time is that the body has run out of the raw materials necessary to make adrenal gland hormones, right? So the adrenal gland produces a number of hormones, the most famous of which is adrenaline. And so when the adrenal gland is called upon to act because of the stress of life, like you're going through a divorce, or hey, you're going through a marriage, or you've got a new baby, or you've got a new job, or you've got a bad boss, or whatever the constant stress in your life is, the adrenal glands are called on to act. Well, if the body doesn't have the requisite nutrients necessary, the adrenal glands try to act, but they can't act because they don't have the nails necessary to, build the house. They don't have the stuff that they need in order to make adrenal hormones. So they shrivel up and shrivel up and shrivel up and shrivel up, and then you're out of luck. So the biggest bugaboo here, from our point of view, and by the way, it was the naturopathic community that brought this whole consideration of adrenal malfunction to the table. I mean, we were the clinicians that really were the first clinicians in the field working with real people to uncover this whole thing of adrenal malfunction. And it's a much bigger condition than most people think. It affects many more people than is commonly known, and most medical doctors are kind of clueless about it until it gets so bad that they diagnose Addison's disease or Cushing's syndrome or whatever, right? So often the reason that the adrenal gland has gone south is because your body doesn't have enough cholesterol, because it's cholesterol that it needs in order to make any hormone in the body, including adrenal hormones or sex hormones or whatever. So one of the therapeutic interventions here is to encourage you and anybody else that's suffering from Addison's disease or Cushing's disease to eat a diet that's very, very high in cholesterol. Now, that, of course, would be on top of the nutritional program. And what we do here in every single instance is there's a balancing act between The prescription medications, which are okay to take and necessary, even in your case, it's a necessary thing to do. It's a necessary evil, if you will. So there's a balancing act, though, between how much of the meds do we need and how long do we need that dose, and how long are we going to take the nutritional stuff, and at what point in time are we going to wean off of the meds. And so there becomes a balancing act. And I think what happened to you, regretfully, is you stopped the hydrocortisone in the first round of this a little too quickly and suffered because of it. Is that kind of how you're thinking too?
Boy, exactly. I said, I think I'm going to take your stuff for 90 days, and then I'm going to talk to my doctor again and see if we can't test to see if there's something is being produced as far as the adrenal gland.
Well, yeah. Now that's a perfect plan. We got to do three things though, Harry. We got to do three things. Number one, you got to take the supplements, and it sounds to me like you're really good and compliant with that, and there's no problem there. Number two, you have to eliminate the 10 bad foods. That's very important. And number three, there's actually four things. Number three, you need to eat a diet that's high in cholesterol. The easiest way to do that, of course, is with chicken, eggs, and butter, right? So you need to eat a lot of eggs, a lot of butter. Don't be afraid of cholesterol. Cholesterol is your friend. Go cholesterol crazy, man, because that's what your body needs. It really needs a lot of that right now. And the final thing, and Longevity does not have a product for this. Longevity does not have a product for this, so you're going to have to go to a health food store or find this product online somewhere. There is an herb made from licorice root, an herb made from licorice root that's very, 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 very beneficial to the adrenal glands. The best way to get it is in a deglycerinized form. It's called deglycerinized licorice, deglycerinized licorice. If you can find capsules of deglycerinated licorice root, then that's a really good thing to do. And I would take 9 a day, 3 with breakfast, 3 with lunch, 3 with dinner. If you can't find deglycerinized licorice root, then you want to look for just licorice tea. Just get some good old-fashioned licorice root tea and drink 2-3 cups of that a day, because licorice root tea is very, very, very good for your adrenal gland. Now, has part of your problem here been with blood pressure, or is your blood pressure okay?
Blood pressure was actually running surprisingly low, in the low 100s, in that area.
And are you okay? Do you feel okay? Do you get lightheaded when you change position, or are you doing all right in that regard?
Actually, I was the first 3 days from the hospital when I got up quickly, but I continued to take the supplements, and every day I'd be out there raking grass or cutting grass, doing gardening. I said, I'm going to work through this, and it seems to be getting better now.
Okay, so if you get on the licorice tea train, you want to be mindful of your blood pressure, because too much licorice root can elevate your blood pressure. Too much licorice root can elevate the blood pressure, which maybe in your case wouldn't be a bad thing, right? But if you start the licorice tea religiously, then you need to be mindful of your blood pressure. Get a cuff and measure it, once every couple of days. But if you get the deglycerinated licorice root capsules, you don't have to worry about the blood pressure at all, because it's the the glycerin component of the herb that elevates the blood pressure. So you've got two options there for the licorice root. And the other thing, of course, would be don't be afraid of cholesterol, and make sure you've eliminated the 10 bad foods. Does it sound like a plan?
It certainly does, and I appreciate your time, and maybe after 90 days I'll give you a call again.
Well, that's great, and what we look for, Harry, is specific and measurable, slow and steady change. So once you're doing the right thing and your body has bounced back from the crisis, then you should be experiencing slow and steady incremental change. It's kind of like watching ice melt in the springtime, right? It's kind of like that. So, give me a call in 4 weeks, man. Give me a call once a month with an update, and certainly 4 weeks is enough time to notice a specific and measurable positive change. I think that would be a better plan than waiting 90 days. But, you're the boss. And
I will.
All right.
I will.
All right, Harry. I look forward to it, man. Thanks for waiting so long yesterday, and thanks so much for the call back. I'll look forward to a further report from you. Thanks so much for the call. All right, folks. So since we're on a roll here, and I've got a couple minutes left, I'm going to go right to the next caller, who is Ken from Canada, from Newfoundland, Canada. Hey, Ken, thanks for the call. You are live.
Hi, Doc.
What's going on, Ken?
Yeah, I was just calling. Thanks again for the conversation the other day. I just wanted to know, like, I was over to the hospital the other day with my wife, Jessie, who you met.
Yeah.
But while I was there, I said, I might as well check my blood and that while I'm here, you know?
Yeah.
And my blood count ended up, it was 130, and so the doctor right away, you know, he said, because of your age and your blood count is down, and we should, you know, get you in for a CAT scan immediately. And as soon as possible, and, you know, look for some tumors. And, you know, he had to get the crap scared out of me, you know?
Well, this was the end of the month, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the end of the month, because the doctors have quotas to fill at the hospital, and they have so many tests that they have to order at the hospital, they get kicked out of the hospital and they can't admit anymore. So the absolute worst time to visit an MD is at the end of the month, because they're going to order all kinds of ridiculous, unnecessary, and expensive testing. And I mean, it's a big problem, and I'm not blowing smoke here. I'm telling you, unless you're bleeding to death, the absolute worst time to visit an MD, especially if they're affiliated with the hospitals at the end of the month, because they're going to do all kinds of unnecessary stuff, and you being an innocent bystander, you're not going to know what the hell. You're just going to do what the doctor says, right? So did they find anything?
Well, no, they didn't do them, because it takes like weeks to get in here to have one. Because don't forget that with the healthcare system here is free, you know, not like the States. And
so what was it specifically in your blood that was low?
Oh, my hemoglobin.
All right, stay tuned, buddy. We're up against the hard break. I'm going to dial this one in for you specifically. This is going to be easier than falling off of a potato truck. Stay tuned, Ken. I'll be back. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Peter Glidden, and this is Fire Your MD Now. Check us out, fireyourmdnow.com. Back after these messages. Dr. Peter Glidden here with another live edition of Fire Your MD Now. We're talking to Ken from Newfoundland. So, Ken, you went in and they did blood work, and they showed that your red count was low, and the doctor got nervous and thought you had a tumor. Is that right?
Yeah, well, my blood count was 130, and he said, yeah, let's check for some tumors and that. And I said, well, you know, the reason I lost it is because of my weight loss. I told him I lost the weight over 7 months dieting. And I didn't just lose it all of a sudden. It took me that long to lose it, you know, and it was because I was paranoid about putting it in my stomach, because I got gastritis, and it's affecting everything was affecting my stomach, and I lost weight due to low calories.
Yeah, so look, that's just overkill. And CT scans, by the way, I'm going to do a webinar on CT scans. I'm thinking about doing a week on the radio of diagnostic stuff, you know, like how they do x-rays, and what the heck is a DEXA scan, and what's an ultrasound, and what's the technology, and why do they do it, and what's it good for. But the basic rule of thumb with CT scans is it's 500 times the amount of radiation that you get in one chest x-ray. It's a massive amount of radiation, and there are no circumstances except a head injury. You know, if you're skiing somewhere and you slip and fall off the trail and smack your head on the side of a tree, and you've got disoriented symptoms, and you've got a certain set of symptoms, then it's possible you've got a little blood on the brain, and blood on the brain that's unseen can kill you quickly. That's how one of the Kennedy kids died, actually, years ago. Remember that? They were playing football on skis, right? And he smacked his head on a tree. Well, that's the only circumstance that, in my opinion, that CT scans are useful. On all other circumstances, you can get just as much information from an MRI or a high-definition ultrasound, but because the hospitals have the CT machines, they need to use the CT machines in order to pay for the CT machines. The doctors don't care that you might get a tumor from the radiation 10 years from now, because it's not the doctor's job to take care of your health. It's the doctor's job to make sure you don't die in the office when you're with him.
I mentioned that to him, and he said, well, ordinarily, but judge, going by your age and the fact that your blood count is 130, and all the weight loss, he said I'd have it done. I'd take the chance.
It's ridiculous. No, I wouldn't have it done. There's no reason to get it done.
What should I do, Doc? I mean, I'm taking the supplements like you told me to. I'm taking all these things.
Well, all right. So the people, I'd have to look. I don't have a photographic memory. I can't remember off the top of my head what the reference range for healthy red blood count is, and it's different with the metric system in Canada than it is with the U.S. So, do you have the blood work in front of you?
The blood work in front of no, it was just you had the blood count.
So here's what I want you to do, Ken. I want you to
13 or 130. That was the blood. That was the hemoglobin. 130.
It was what's the normal reference range on the blood work there?
I think it's like 140 on up is for males, right? Or 138 up.
I don't know. So the low end of normal is 140, and yours was at 130, and he wanted to do a CT scan.
Yeah.
He's an idiot. So you want to not go back to that doctor, because that is just overkill. I mean, that's like going into the doctor with an ingrown toenail, and he wanted to do a brain CT scan on you. I mean, it's nonsense. I mean, I'm telling you.
Yeah, there's just a bunch of stuff. The weight loss rate, and when I use the bathroom now, like every 2 days, is solid. But the thing is, that my color, my stool is green, because I take greens all the time. I take the supplement greens because it's got the broccoli and all that into it. Yeah. And I take greens, and he said, well, that's probably blood. Your blood coming out in your stool.
Well, he's an idiot. I mean, the guy's an idiot. So, really, you wouldn't. But my advice to you, Ken, is not to worry about it. Just maintain the discipline with the protocol, and 2 weeks from now, have another red blood count done and see if the numbers go up. Probably they're going to go up, and if they go down, then that's a problem. And there is something called occult blood. You can get an occult blood test at the local drugstore. I don't know what they're called in Canada. In the U.S., they're CVS or Walgreens. But I would go to your local pharmacy and get an occult blood test for your stool. And you can, so you take a little sample of your stool and you rub it on this card, and if there's blood in it, it pops up a particular color, and that's how you know that there's blood in the stool. That's a much better thing to do than ordering a CT scan, for goodness sake. So, we want to be prudent here. We want to not miss the obvious, but we don't want to overdo it either with dangerous, expensive stuff. So probably a good course of action for you now would be to get an occult blood test. And if that's normal, that's for your stool. If that's normal, you're good to go, buddy. And I would just have the red blood count taken again in 2 weeks. But maintain your discipline with the program. Medical nutrition is a process, not an event, and it will serve you well. Hold on, buddy. Just, hold on to it. It's going to come around in your favor. Sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, folks? Sick and tired of going from one prescription to the next? Sick and tired of going from one surgery to the next? Sick and tired of getting one-sided advice? Sick and tired of a medical monopoly? Sick and tired of the men and the women in the white coats giving you all of the wrong advice all of the time and then not taking any responsibility for their actions? Sick and tired of medical Machiavellian mediocrity? You should be. I'm going to go to California now. Shannon also called yesterday. I think she was waiting the entire show to talk to me, and she was at the end of the line. Sorry about that, Shannon. You're one of my favorite callers. Welcome back. You are live.
Well, thank you, Dr. Glidden, and we certainly missed you.
Yeah, well, I got to take a vacation every now and then. I had a great time in France, though, and let me tell you a quick story here, Shannon, because it's important and it's on the top of my mind. For the last, 3.5 years, maybe 4 years, but definitely 3.5 years, I have been 100% gluten-free, man, and I mean, I haven't even looked at gluten. Just, I really, really, really disciplined, right? Walking my talk. And so I'm in France with my sweetheart, and we're hanging out, we're having a good time, and we're in France, where, bread is a religion, right? And I'm a nice enough guy, and I'm a friendly guy, especially if I've had a couple of glasses of wine. I'm a very outgoing individual. And so we're having dinner at a restaurant that we'd been to a year ago, and the waiter was very animated, kind of like myself, and we really hit it off a year ago. And so we went back, and it's like, oh, voila, mon ami, you're back, right? And we had such a good time that he invited us to his apartment the following day for lunch. So here we are in France, and we're at this guy's apartment for lunch. But, of course, we neglected to tell him that we were gluten-free. So he serves this beautiful lunch that, I don't know how long it took to prepare, but I got to tell you, man, the French are into food, right? So he prepares this lunch, and we've got cheese, and we've got a foie gras, and we've got bread, and then there's some more bread, and then there's some more bread, and then there's a little bit more bread, and then there's a little bit more cheese, and then there's cold cuts, and then there's a little bit more bread. And so my sweetheart and I are looking at each other, well, what are we going to do? We can't be impolite, so, what's a piece of bread going to do? I'm thinking to myself, right? What harm can one piece of French bread do? So I go for it, not to be impolite and, break the social code. So I have a piece of bread and, a couple glasses of wine, and then, before I know it, I've had maybe 3 pieces of French bread, and then lunch is over, and we go on our merry way. We're going to explore Paris a little bit more, and then we go out to dinner about 6-7 hours later, and I'm thinking to myself, well, son of a gun, I'm feeling pretty good, and what's the problem with the whole wheat thing, and I start thinking, oh, maybe the wheat in France is different than the wheat in the U.S., so guess what they bring at the fancy French restaurant? A plate of bread with these little puff pastry things, and I figure, well, what the heck, I'm in for a penny, I'm in for a pound, I'm going to do a little in-house experiment. And so I have 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 of these little puff pastries, right? Delicious. I'm telling you, delicious, right? I go home that night, and then all heck breaks loose. For the next 2.5 days, I'm having diarrhea. I had diarrhea so much, well, I don't want to get too graphic, but, it was not pretty. And the last day that we were in Paris, the 6, 7, 8 hours of the last day, which was the day after the bread experience, the bread debacle, I felt like I had drunk 3 cases of wine all by myself, and we hadn't had that much to drink the night before. I was so unbelievably messed up from just 3, 4 pieces of bread and a couple of puff pastries. It was unbelievable. The amount of negative reaction that the wheat molecule engendered on my body. I felt like I'd been hit by a Mack truck. Completely ruined the first half of my last day in Paris. I'm walking around like someone with a hangover, and it was just bad, man. Then I got these little funky breakouts on my skin. It looked like a little poison ivy eruption, and it was going, oh my God. And so, ladies and gentlemen, in the listening audience, I am walking proof that wheat, barley, rye, and oats, especially wheat, it doesn't matter if it's French wheat, it doesn't matter if it's Croatian wheat, it doesn't matter if it's Russian wheat, it doesn't matter. The wheat molecule is big, bad voodoo daddy on the human body. And if you don't believe me, do the Dr. Glidden challenge, but this is the Dr. Glidden challenge on steroids. For 1 month, 30 days, 31 days, pick a month, 28 days if you want. For February, you go 100% gluten-free. I mean, don't even look at wheat, barley, rye, or oats. 0 tolerance. And then, on the 31st day, or the first day of the next month, right, eat a lot of wheat. Wait 24 hours and see how you feel. You are going to be amazed. I was amazed. I mean, I've been preaching this song for the last 4 years, been gluten-free myself. I honestly didn't think it was going to be that big of a reaction, but it was, man. And I'm really glad that it happened, because now, I mean, even if I look at a piece of French bread, I'm going like, oh my God, I've got this absolute negative Pavlovian response, and that crap is never going to pass my lips again. And when I think out loud to myself about all of the wheat consumption that happens all around the world all of the time, well, is there any wonder that everybody is sick? I'm telling you, folks, it's free. There's nothing to buy here, no supplements, nothing to do. All this is a free prescription for health. Stop eating gluten and see for yourself how you feel. It's a big, bad voodoo daddy. But, Shannon, I digress once again. I think you're calling about a pacemaker. Is that correct?
That's right. And about gluten, I completely agree with you because I'm the poster girl for a gluten intolerance, and I'm still fighting it even though I'm off gluten. I have a lot of absorption problems, so it's a good idea to stay away from that man-made wheat.
You go, girl.
Yeah.
I mean, it's becoming a phenomenon here, and the good news is that the restaurants that we did go to, when we told them that we were gluten-free, most people knew what that was, even in France. So the tide is starting to turn. But I couldn't believe what an unbelievably strong negative reaction it was. I mean, it was a real eye opener to me. So anyway, Shannon, who in your life has a pacemaker?
Well, my mother-in-law, and I had spoken to you about her before, but I would like for you to please tell us about pacemakers and why they put them in and all that fun stuff, so I can have her listen to it, because she won't listen to me, but she'll listen to you.
Okay, well, good. That's easy to do, and I appreciate the trust, really. So, pacemaker use in the United States is an interesting phenomenon. But between 1993, I think, and around 2008, 2009, pacemaker use increased in the United States by something like 50 to 55%, right? 55% increase in pacemaker use between 1993 and 2009. I mean, it was a gigantic trend. And following closely on the tails of the increased use of pacemakers, of course, hospitals made something like 40 to 45% more money because of all of the pacemaker installations. It's a big money maker for the hospitals. So remember, our MD cousins here, MD allopathic cousins, follow a reductionistic medical model. And reductionism argues that the human body is a machine. The human body doesn't have any self-healing properties at all. Once it's broken, you're screwed, basically. And your only option, as from the MD point of view, which is the wrong point of view in this regard, is to take drugs to manage your symptoms until things get so bad that you need surgery, right? So they'll give you a fake knee, they'll rip out the gallbladder, they'll rip out the uterus, they'll rip out the tonsils, they'll rip out the appendix, they'll rip out whatever the heck they can, because that's what they're trained in. And in the case of a heart, which is beating inconsistently, rather than try to get to the root cause of understanding what the problem is with the heart, the MD just goes in with an electrode and burns the nerves in the heart that make the heart beat. That's what they do. They go in with a little electrode. Sometimes it's a laser. I mean, the more sophisticated hospitals use a laser now. And they zap the nerves in the heart that make the heart beat. Well, that sounds crazy, doesn't it? Well, yes, it does. But why do they do that? Because the MDs believe that man is smarter than nature, that man is smarter than God. And so rather than try to fix the problem, rather than try to support and promote the structures in the body that actually give the body a normal heartbeat, the MDs burn the nerves in the heart and then install a man-made mechanical pacemaker that they stick in the chest and connect to the heart. And the little pacemaker has a battery in it, and the pacemaker sends electrical signals to the heart to keep the heart beating. So, it's like, I don't know if you're a Star Trek fan, but in one of the Star Trek episodes, Star Trek The Next Generation, there was a race of alien beings called the Borg, and the Borg were half humanoid and half machines, right? And that's what the MDs want. In an MD's perfect world, we'd all have artificial hearts, we'd all have fake hips, we'd all have fake knees. If you're a woman, you'd have your breasts cut off when you're 14 years old as a cancer preventive. Unless you really wanted to have kids, you'd have your uterus yanked as a uterine and ovarian cancer preventive. It's nonsense. Their way of thinking is nonsense. So rather than try to get to the root cause of the problem, they go into the heart, burn the nerves, obliterate the nerves, destroy the nerves, and then put a man-made mechanical device into the body to keep the heart beating. And I'm the quack, right? It's nonsense. Most of the time, it is our position that most of the time, when somebody has an irregularly beating heart, the problem is not the heart. The heart itself is sound. The nerves in the heart are sound. The problem, most of the time, is the back. Because the spine of the body covers your backbones, the bones in your back, the stuff the chiropractor adjusts, cover your spinal cord. Your spinal cord goes from your brain all the way down into your butt, and all of the nerves that make everything in the body work come off of the spinal cord. Well, most of them come off of the spinal cord. It is our position that most of the time when the heart is beating irregularly, the nerve that comes out of the spinal cord that goes to the heart has become pressed on by the backbone. And what causes the backbone to press on the nerve? Well, there's a little disc between the backbones. It's called an intervertebral disc. It's like a feather pillow. And, you know, everybody knows that when a feather pillow gets a hole in it and the feathers leak out, it ain't cushy anymore. The pillow's lost its cushioning ability, right? Nobody wants to sleep on a feather pillow that's lost its feathers. Well, when the discs, the intervertebral discs in your back degenerate, if it happens to be the disc that's in the part of your back where the nerve comes to your heart, just walking upright is going to put undue pressure on the nerve because the disc ain't there anymore, and that is what we believe is the causative factor of a funky heartbeat. Now, the easiest way to see if you have a degenerative disc is to look to see if you've lost height. When you were a kid, if you were 5'10", and now you're 5'8", guess what? You've got degenerative disc disease. That's the easiest way to diagnose it. Another way is to just go to a chiropractor, have them do an x-ray of you while you are standing up, and they can measure it and look to see whether or not you have a problem with your disc. So rather than do surgery, which is rather extreme in this condition, we recommend for this problem for 6 months, we do the medical nutrition intervention to support and promote the structure and function of the body and see what happens, because, you can't never unsurgery something, and that's pretty extreme. For goodness sake, fire your MD now. And, Granny, listen to Shannon. She knows her stuff. Stick around, ladies and gentlemen, back after these messages with so much more. We're back, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Peter Glidden here, your friendly neighborhood naturopath. Please check us out, fireyourmdnow.com. That's right, fireyourmdnow.com. And I'm as serious as a heart attack when I say this. Fire Your MD Now. And check out the website of the same name, fireyourmdnow.com. Get educated. Subscribe to my online health recovery service. You're going to learn more with my online health recovery service. It's $19.95 a month, and you're ever going to learn from your medical doctor. And it's way better. It's a way better investment in your health, plus longevity supplements, than health insurance is, as God is my witness. When you're buying health insurance, what are you doing? You're betting you're going to get so darn sick you won't be able to afford it, right? Well, isn't it better to make yourself healthy? Well, yeah, it is. Who can help you do that? Your MD? No. I can. Your naturopath. You don't even need to pay for an office visit, for goodness sake, because healing is easy. We're going to go to Allegheny, Oregon now and talk to Mary. Hey, Mary, thanks for the phone call. You are live.
Could I make a comment before I ask my question?
Sure.
I've emailed you sometimes and asked for peer-reviewed studies, and I've come to realize I was asking the wrong question, I believe. I now think science-based information that you explained to us so well, and that's where I've come to this conclusion. And then on my own, I've decided, well, scientific peer-reviewed studies are actually two different animals, because peer-reviewed does not make it stellar science.
That's correct. You're absolutely correct. That makes you the smartest girl in class, Mary. And there's one more piece to the puzzle here, right? Because, in a perfect world, there would be objective research that wasn't funded by the pharmaceutical companies and that was really done by scientists who didn't have their fingers in anybody's pie. But that's not the way that it is. It's all pharmaceutical money, and it's all, messed up because of the money. And there's no longer very rare. It's very rare animal objective scientific research. And so what we lean on instead, right, is the practice of medicine. because we have theories that are based somewhat in research and somewhat in clinical experience and somewhat in common sense, and then we apply these theories with real live patients, and we see the trends, and this is called the practice of medicine. And this is what we have to lean on now, because the research market has been completely screwed up by pharmaceutical corruption. And so, what we bring to the table here is decades of clinical experience with real patients based, with real results. And, this is why we get results. But it's a point well taken, Mary. It makes you the smartest girl in class today. Did you have a question about a homemade eye wash, I think?
Yes, to help out all people that have hay fever.
Yeah. So do you have a homemade recipe yourself, or are you asking for mine?
I'm asking for yours.
Oh, okay. So hay fever, a homemade eye wash. Well, the best. There's a couple of things that you can do. One thing that's I think my favorite. Is not sold by Youngevity. You have to get this over the counter. Most health food stores carry it. It's called Euphorbium. It's a homeopathic eye wash. And it's spelled E-U, P like Peter, H-O-R, B like baby, I-U-M, Euphorbium. It's a homeopathic mixture of different substances in a liquid base, and you squirt it into your eyes. And it's a nice little anti-inflammatory-esque anti-allergy thing for your eyes. And the best way to do this, whenever you're trying to rinse the eyes with anything, is to get a little eye cup. Put whatever it is you're going to rinse the eye with in the eye cup. Stick the eye cup to your eye, and then look up at the ceiling with the eye cup against your eye, and then open and close your eye 5 or 6 times with, to get the stuff that was in the eye cup to rinse around your eyeball, and then invert your head, take the eye cup off, and life is good. If you can't find the Euphorbium, then the next best thing is colloidal silver. So get some colloidal silver, put that in the eye cup, rinse it a couple times a day, and also be aware with seasonal allergies, right? With seasonal allergies, look to see the very last thing that you had to eat or drink before you have an allergy flare-up. Because it's always related. It's always related. But it's a 10 or 15-minute delay, and it's easy to miss. So the next time you have an allergy flare-up because of hay fever, look to see the last thing you had to eat or drink, and then stop eating that stuff or drinking that stuff during hay fever season. It will remarkably reduce your acute symptoms. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Dr. Peter Glidden. Second hour is coming up. Please stay tuned. 866-582-9933. That's my number. Give me a call. I look forward to talking to you today and every day. The best is yet to come. I'm Dr. Peter Glidden. Stick around.